Hello guys and welcome to Engineering Rebel. In this video, I'm going to be introducing you guys to a new project series. I am going to be building a combustion motor this big, and it's real, and it actually takes real gasoline and combusts it. Now, for those of you who don't know, these are RC engines and they're this big. And people would generally put them in model cars, model planes, and model boats. What I'm going to do in this video is walk you guys through each of the pieces and explain what they are. Now, I am not going to go in depth because I've already done so in another video explaining on how car engines work. So if you're not familiar with how car engines work or the bits and pieces, I highly recommend you go and check out my video, Car Engines, What You Need to Know, and come back to this video in order to get a better understanding. But if you are ready to go, just continue watching. So what are we waiting for? Let's just jump right into the video. So this is the operating manual to the engine, and it also gives some specifications. So let's take a look. So this is how all the bits and pieces are supposed to be assembled. So, this part is the carburetor, you got the starter motor, this part is like the crankcase with your oil pan, and is like your crankshaft. You got a tiny little piston. This is your muffler. As you can see, you even have an oil pan gasket, and you have a block. This is a sleeved engine, so there would be a sleeve that goes into the block, and that's where your cylinder would rest. These are your fan components. You got a head, it's single overhead cam, it's 2 valves per cylinder. Actually, in this case, it's only 1 cylinder. These are your rocker arms, valve cover gasket, and you got a little valve cover. So here are some of the specifics. So as you guys can see, the displacement is 3.5 cc's, which that means it's a 3.5 cubic inch motor. That is very tiny. The bore, which is the diameter of the cylinder, is 1660. I am guessing millimeters. The stroke is 17, and that's the distance of travel of the piston when it goes up and down. And then the RPMs are 2,500 to 13,500. So this engine idles at 2,500 RPMs, and it redlines at 13,500 RPMs. To put that in perspective, a regular car with a normal gasoline combustion motor, probably the red line on that would be about 62 to 6,300 RPM. So this is literally double that. And the weight is 420 grams. So it does have a weight to it, but it's not insanely heavy. So let's start off with the exterior accessories of the engine, like the fuel tank, the glow plug, some of the starter components. So we've got the fuel tank. We've got the starter accessories. As you guys can see, there is the glow plug in here, and you also got your little starter button. And I think this is what supplies the electricity. We've got some fuel lines. We've got the oil pan gasket and probably the valve cover gasket. I know that the head gasket is a circular piece, so these are not one of them. And these are our tools to assemble the engine. And then we got these 3 pieces, which come in this foam housing, and I don't know what they are or what they're supposed to do, but I'm sure we'll find out sooner or later. And these are the much smaller components, like screws and washers and bolts and some extra gaskets. So let me actually pull this up to the camera so you guys can see much closer. So these are the carburetor components, these are crankshaft components, and these are the cylinder cap components. You open it up, you guys can see. These are the spacers for the carburetors. This is your head gasket. We got some bolts in here. I think it's for the heads, for screwing the head into the block. And some other washers and springs. Some of the components in these little baggies are greased, which is a good thing. So you don't have to grease them yourselves. This engine does come with grease, and you guys will see that very soon. These are some more screws. You got a starter motor components and a spacer. These are the engine cap screws, exhaust box components, like the inlet, little pieces. We also got some fan components in here, and these are the fan blades. So let me open it up. So these would be our fan blades. And we also got some bearings. Next, we got the parts of the head, or at least some parts. We've got our timing belt. Now this one, this bigger one, is your timing belt. This one is for the starter motor. So this would hook up with your flywheel, and when the starter motor turns, it'll turn on the motor, it'll turn it over. This is, I'm sure, your flywheel cap. This is the flywheel itself. This is your camshaft gear. We got like this muffler cover. And then this is kind of like your accelerator pedal. This piece is the carburetor. Let me see if I can take it out. So this is the carburetor. So this is probably where it'll suck in the air. The fuel will probably go in somewhere through here. I think there will be like this golden piece that will screw into here, and then that's probably where it'll go through. We've got some bearings. This one I think is your camshaft bearing. Actually, sorry, I think these two are. And yeah, and this is also a component for your carburetor. So let me hold this up so you guys can see. Oh, and this is the grease that I was talking about. So this is what you'll use to grease your cams or your cam. And finally, we've got my favorite part. This is the valve cover. And as you guys can see, it spells out the brand for the engine, Toyan. And if you guys could only see this in person, it's extremely beautiful. The quality is just out of this world. This is not a sponsorship video, but I'm just being honest. It is very beautiful. This is the muffler itself. You guys can see the channels, and this is how it deadens the sound. This would probably be your oil pan. This would be your crankcase. So this would go like right on top of your oil pan. And this is the little tiny little spark plug. This is the engine block itself. It does have a weight to it, but the quality is just very amazing. And this is where your sleeve would go, like you guys saw in the diagram. And this is where those set screws would go. This is the head. So you guys can see your intake and your exhaust valve. I think the intake valve is closer to the spark because this is a carbureted engine. So when the intake valve opens, I think your fuel would also come with it. And this is your exhaust valve. So as the camshaft turns, it'll push the rocker arm and then it'll open these valves, as you guys can see. Let me demonstrate. So it'd be like this. You would have your intake, then compression, power, and then when it comes to the last stroke, this would open, pushing out the exhaust. This is, I think, by far my most favorite part of the engine. And it's this tiny little piston. Isn't it cute? It's just so tiny. Just look at that quality. Look at that machining. And you got your little bearing. Now, this one does not have a connecting cap and with its little screws, but that's okay. I guess more durable, less things to fall off and break. And this is the bracket for your starter. This is the sleeve that I was talking about. So this would go into this piece. Like that. And this is the piece for your fan, so your fan blades would get screwed onto here. And this is the crankshaft. And again, it's in a bag, so it means it's greased up. Again, that's a very good thing. So I don't have to grease it myself. And yeah, those are pretty much the components. And you also got a piece of crankshaft, a part of the crankshaft. So these two will be together. And this hole in here, as you guys can see, this hole, this piece will go in like this. So it'll look something like this. And you'll have your piston that goes like that. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And I have to be honest, the packaging, when I first saw it, it just blew me away. It was very amazing. And I highly recommend that if you are interested in this model engine and really love engineering and mechanical engineering and you're into automotive engineering, I highly recommend that you check this engine out. It's called the Toyan Fs series engines. You can also get the 2-cylinder and the 4-cylinder variants. But I highly recommend this 1-cylinder because this is the only one that you can actually get in bits and pieces and build. You can request one that is all put together, but I purposely chose the one that's in pieces because I think that it's just more fun to build your own engine. And the greatest accomplishment that you can ever have is to see something that you built run. So that wraps it up for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I am really looking forward to this build and I can't wait to start wrenching on this engine. For those of you who don't know, this is the first time that I'm building something like this, so I'm sure it'll be quite the journey. Well, thank you guys so much for watching and I'll see you guys in the next one.